Bibles. We are going to start a new series, and this year we decided to do a series based on Advent. So these candles, we light one every week for these 4 weeks, preparing up to our Christmas Eve service, where we will light the center candle, the Christ candle. So even as Sean did this morning, just telling us a little bit about hope and what Advent is, we're going to take each of those topics. It's hope, joy, peace, love, or hope, peace, love, joy. We're gonna hit those every week. We're gonna take one of those. So today we're gonna talk about hope, and I want to encourage you with something. Grab hold of hope and hold on to it, and be a conduit of hope for people around you. And we're gonna get there. We're gonna talk about that. But we live in a world that needs hope. And can I tell you, it's not just the world. Believers, we need hope. We need to make sure that we remind ourselves of the hope that we have. And there is hope because of Jesus. And we're going to talk about that today. So let me give you a kind of a definition of biblical hope, because hope scripturally is not the same as hope what we hear in the world. Okay, scripturally, biblical hope is a confident assurance that God is going to be faithful. Things are going to happen. That's what biblical hope is. So when we say that, we're like, you know what? I have hope that God is going to take care of me, because his word says that he will provide. His word says that he's there for me. His word says that in my weakness, his strength is perfect. I have hope when I go through a difficulty, because I know God is faithful, because I know he's going to come through. That's what hope is biblically. In the world we live in, this is how hope is used. Wishful thinking. Like, man, I hope Carolina Panthers win the Super Bowl. See what I'm saying? That's not going to happen. That's just wishful thinking. But people say that, man, I hope we're going to win. I hope we win it all. You're not. You're not going to win it all. It's too late for that. As a Buccaneer fan, I have so much fun saying that, but we're not going to either. But when we talk about the difference, let's look at biblical hope. Paul says in Ephesians 1, 16 through 18, he says, I've not stopped thanking God for you, and I pray for you constantly, asking God, the glorious Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, to give you spiritual wisdom and insight so that you can grow in your knowledge of God. And I pray that your hearts will be flooded with light so that you can understand the confident hope that he's given to those he's called. So our hope, God has given us hope. And Paul's writing about that. This is the kind of hope, which is the biblical hope that God has given us. Romans 15, 12 and 13 says, and in another place, Isaiah said, the heir to David's throne will come, and he will rule over the Gentiles, and they will place their hope on him. Verse 13, I pray that God, the source of what? So where does your hope come from? Okay, 3 of y'all got that right. Come on, we got to wake up. Where does your hope come from? Yes. So because there is a God, then there is hope for you. And he will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. And then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. You know what it means to overflow? It means to have more than what you need. If you have a glass and you fill it up and you keep pouring, it overflows, which means there's more substance than what there is the container can hold. So if we're overflowing with hope, we have more hope than what we even need. We have more hope than what we can even fully understand. God has given us that kind of hope. So this is the kind of hope. It's almost like an anticipation. Okay, how many of you remember either when you were a little kid or your little kids, you remember Christmas Eve when they would go to bed knowing that tomorrow they're going to get up and open up all these presents? How many of your kids went in and went straight to sleep? No, I never did. I stayed up. I just wanted to know, okay, what are they putting out there? Like I wanted to sneak out of my room. I wanted to figure stuff out. One time my parents made us all stay in one room and we knew they were putting something together and we had to find it. But there was that anticipation of what? Christmas. We knew it was tomorrow. There's no question about it. So we were anticipating. It's the moment before the moment. You know what I mean? It's like you know it's coming, and the excitement is there even before it's here. Because you know it's coming, and that's what it was. That's what kids are like at Christmas Eve. That's what hope is. It's that anticipation. It's the moment before the moment where you feel like this is going to happen. That's what it's about. Same thing when, another example would be, Sean and Shay announced last week that they're pregnant. Well, they aren't. She is pregnant. They're going to have a baby. So if you weren't here last week, you might not have known that, but Pastor Shay is pregnant, and they're going to have a baby. Now there's this excitement and anticipation for what they know is coming. It's not, I hope we're going to have a baby. No, listen, there's a baby growing. You are going to have a baby. So these are the kind of confident hopes that you have. I'll give you one more example. Thanksgiving. The best part of Thanksgiving for me is Hershey bar pie. It's the dessert that we have every Thanksgiving. Every Thanksgiving. If we don't, then I'm not thankful. Like it is so good. And it's that moment when you're finishing up. You just finish like your 5th plate of turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, whatever you have. And then you kind of trying to breathe, put on your sweatpants. And then it's like, you know what's coming? Hershey bar pie. It's that anticipation because I know what's in the refrigerator. I know when I go to Aunt Joanne's house, Hershey bar pie. If I'm at my parents' house, Hershey bar pie. At our house, Hershey bar pie. It's just part of it. It's that anticipation because I knew it was in the refrigerator. I knew it. I saw it. And I knew I was getting ready to have some. That's the anticipation. Like you just know it's for real. The wishful thinking, that's a whole different thing. There's no confidence. There's no assurance it's going to happen. The world just says, I hope it does, but I don't know. That's not what this hope is that we have. It's a hope that we can put our faith in and trust that it's going to happen. So listen, this world is in desperate need of hope. We live in a very dark world in a lot of ways. When I say dark, I'm not talking just dark as in physically dark, but I'm talking between sin, between just what goes on in our world, between hatred and racism and political unrest and strife and just all this stuff that happens and all this stuff that just you see all over the news, all the violence that we've seen lately. Our world needs hope. It's very dark. But here's what I love. Light always overcomes darkness. So when God sent Jesus as the light to overcome darkness, that's the hope that we have, is in the light of the world, and we'll get to that. But look in John chapter 1. I was studying this week, and I love this passage. It says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word already existed. The Word was with God. The Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. Now listen, it was talking so far, it's all past tense. He brought life to everyone. In the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God. And now he's saying this, the light shines right now. The light shines in the present, in darkness. And darkness can never extinguish light, ever. It just can't. It can't extinguish it. Let's go to verse 6. God sent a man, John the Baptist. And basically what John the Baptist says, in verse 7 it comes up, it says this. It says that John the Baptist said, I am not the light, I came to prepare the way for the light. So John the Baptist is not the light, he was preparing the light. So that's what he's saying in this book, in this writing of John. Listen, it's not about John the Baptist, it's about Jesus who is the light. And in verse 14, when it talks about the Word was God. And then it said this in verse 14, the Word became human and made his home among us. That's when Christ came. That's when Jesus came to the earth as a human and dwelt with us here. That's the message where, again, light came to darkness. When it's dark, what do you need? Light. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to use the restroom or someone's at the door and it's late, what do? You turn a light on so you can see. If you're looking for something and the room is dark, what do? You need light so you can see. There's so much darkness and all we need is light. And here's the thing, if we were to turn all the lights out in here, that little candle would extinguish darkness. You could put all the darkness around that candle if you want, and you'll never take the light out because light always overcomes. Jesus came in the midst of darkness to give us hope. That's what he came to do. Now I love the fact that when you read this, look at Genesis chapter 1. Because there it says, in the beginning was the Word. That's when it says in John 1. And then here it says, in the beginning God created heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and emptied, and darkness covered the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. So there's this darkness, but then God said what? Let there be light. So even in creation, God spoke light over the darkness. Light came in darkness. Light shows up. When the world is dark, light shows up. Listen, when Jesus was born, it was a very, sometimes we think, well, back then it wasn't like it is now. Can I just tell you, look at this passage in Matthew chapter 2. In verse 13 through 16, it says, after the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, said, get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother. The angel said, stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. This is the world. This is the world Jesus came to. That night, Joseph left for Egypt and the child and Mary, his mother. And they stayed there until Herod's death, the fulfillment of what the Lord had spoken through the prophet. I called my son out of Egypt. Look at this verse. Herod was furious when he realized that the wise men had outwitted him, because he was trying to get the wise men to tell him where Jesus was. So now he's furious with them, and he sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men report of the star's first appearance. This is the leader. This is the one who is saying, I want to kill all the 2-year-old and under boys. This is the world that Jesus came to. This is the place Jesus came. Because light shows up in dark places. Light shows up in dark places, and the darkness is no more. So think about this in your own life. What are the dark places in your life? What are dark places? What are they? It's not just a physical darkness. But it could be sin, it could be struggles, it could be whatever. It could just be a storm you're going through. But you ever heard the phrase, I'm just kind of in the dark on that? It's like, I don't know. I don't know how to handle this. I was writing some things down. It's like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You ever face something and you don't know what you're supposed to do? You're like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how this is going to end. Or what about this? I don't even know if it's ever going to change. This is just the way it's always been, is the way it's always going to be. And we find ourselves in these places of hopelessness at times because it's a dark place sometimes, and we don't We don't always open ourselves up to the light. And there's this darkness that we go through and that people go through, and you don't even know you're going through it sometimes. You've just settled in like, man, I don't know what to do. Have you ever been somewhere and didn't know what to do? You ever had a decision in front of you and you just didn't know what to do? Have you ever been lost? Anybody ever been lost? A lot of fellas. Listen, that is the worst feeling, especially when you're young and you're dependent on others. I remember at stores or at the mall every now and then, because of my just because of who I am, I would roam and I would just be looking at stuff, and all next thing you know, it's like, where's my mom? Where's my dad? Where's mom and dad? And for those moments when I'd have to find what aisle they're on, those moments where I would just get real fearful and real worried because I just didn't know where they were. I was lost. There's a lot of people in the world that are lost. There's a lot of believers who are lost in the sense of don't know where to go and how to navigate through whatever situation they're facing. And we need light. We need the light to come and to help us overcome. Listen, a couple weeks ago, I was in New Orleans. I was at some board meetings, and the hotel I stayed at, I'm in New Orleans, and when you stay at a hotel, they have a lot of hotels, depending on what hotel you stay at, but they have two sets of curtains. They have the real flimsy, see-through curtains, and then they have those real thick, they're almost like plastic curtains, that when you close those, there is no light. And if you don't, I remember one time when I was in Bible college, I remember I put up blankets over my window just so it'd be really dark. And I slept for a long time because light never entered. Those curtains, they prevent light from coming in, and it'll seem like it's dark all the time. Even though right outside those curtains is a lot of light. And sometimes the only way to let the light in is you got to open those curtains up. Because light's there. It's not that light's not there. Your room is dark, but it's only dark because of the absence of light. But you can change that with one decision to open the curtains. And then all of a sudden there's light. And there's a lot of light. And the darkness is gone. And sometimes in our life, that's what we have to do. We have to decide in these places for us and for the world, the only way to have hope in a dark place is that we have to open up to the light. And we have to recognize that the light is our source of hope. And I'm just telling you, if you will really listen to what the Lord is saying, you will leave this place with hope today, no matter how dark your situation is. No matter how dark it is. There's two things. One is, I think one thing that helps us is we got to be honest and let the Lord's light shine in our darkness. Before we can ever be a conduit of his light to others, we have to receive his light for us. We have to receive God's hope to help others walk in hope. And I was really contemplating on this week because I don't want it to be like, hey, let's expose our darkness. But can I tell you, we all have dark places in our life. I'm not saying that it's all this hidden sin. I'm just saying there's dark places where we struggle, or we don't understand, or we're trying to figure something out, or we don't have an answer to something at the moment we want it. And the greatest thing we could do is recognize that this is a place that I'm finding is dark for me. Because if you don't know it's dark, you don't run for light. But it's in those dark places where you see, like, this is a place that God wants to shine his light. Because when God shines his light, it reveals those things in us that need to be revealed so we can be healed. Right? We've talked about that before. He'll reveal it so he can heal it. And part of revealing it sometimes is coming before the Lord and saying, Lord, this is a dark place for me. I struggle with this. Or I have a hard time here. I don't understand this. Your dark spot could just be something of just insecurity. Could just be a place where fear just grips you. It could be a lot of things. It could be a hidden sin. It could be things that you're involved in that just aren't right. But whatever it is, let God's light in. Let God's light in. Ask yourself this question: is there anything in you that you have this statement, I don't know what to do? Let God's light in. If this question is in your mind at all, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get through this. Then let God's light in. If the question is this, I don't think anything's ever going to change. Let God's light in, because all of those can be areas where you're not walking in the hope that God has. And that's why the first thing we have to do is we have to be able to say, Lord, what is the dark place? See, of all the people, I'm just going to talk to all of us. If you're here and you've never given your life to Jesus, you're excused from this remark for now. But as believers, we should be the greatest example of transparency and vulnerability of weak areas in our life. Because when we recognize it, again, when God reveals it, it's so he can heal it. So now we're saying, listen, I want to be healthy. I want to be healthier, so this place that I've struggled with, instead of hiding it, instead of being ashamed of it or being embarrassed by it, to say, God, will you bring your light to this and show me why I act this way or why I do this? Because I'm convinced, in my own personal opinion, that the church would thrive if we would be more transparent and more real to our community and to people around us. Because having a difficulty doesn't mean you don't have hope. Having a difficulty means you recognize it because you want God to heal it. And then everybody around you is going to say, you know what? I have spots in me like that. And God can heal that. And you're going to help others come to Jesus. Because you're going to be saying, I know that God can take care of this place in me. And then you're going to find that other people that have those places are going to say, you know what? Where did you find help? I found it from God. The light shined on it. So let's be real about it. The second thing is be a witness of God's light to others who are in the darkness. John 1 verse 6, and we had it up there. Verse 7 is actually where it says it, but it says that John the Baptist was not the light, but he came to show and to be a witness of the light. Listen, you have within you the light. And you have what it takes, because God can use you to bring that light and to bring that hope to other people. Hope is people are grasping and looking intentionally for hope. And we have it. Let's don't be selfish. Let's don't just look at like, man, thank God I'm not them. No, let's help them become and have the hope that we have. Because Jesus came, God so loved the world. This hope is for everybody. It's not just for us. It's not just for you. It's for everybody. So don't, like I said, be real about your stuff so you can help others be real about theirs. most of the time we have a tendency, I believe humans in general, have a tendency to try to avoid pain or suffering. No one likes it. But sometimes it produces something in you. Sometimes it helps you. How many ever work out, go to the gym, lift weights? Guess what? Sometimes it hurts a little. If it's not hurting you, it's probably not helping you at the gym. That's what they always told me. Hey, if it ain't hurting, it ain't helping. Well, then don't help me so much, because I'm hurting. But I stopped lifting weights. They got way too heavy. So I was like, I'm done with this. But sometimes we avoid that. And sometimes there's great things that God wants to do. And sometimes there's places we go and things we walk through that God is doing and teaching us something. Jesus said to Philip when he's feeding the 5,000, it says that he was testing Philip to reveal something in him. So I, for one, have always been one to try to just not have any hurt or pain. I don't like pain. I don't like suffering. And the more I read the scripture and hear that the godly will be persecuted. Oh man, really? Jesus, come quickly. You know what I mean? You just don't want to go through it. And I don't like seeing other people in pain. I was a terrible coach for Patty when we had our first child. Patty was in there and she was hurting, having those contractions. Is that what they are? Contractions? Yeah. And she was like, ah! And whenever when they got real strong, I left. Isn't that horrible? I'm in the room, I'm like, you got this. Ah! I'll be right back. And I go out there and I feel totally like a jerk. My wife's like, ah! Where's my husband? Oh, he's out there getting a snack. Because I didn't like seeing her in pain. But guess what? There was pain. That pain had a purpose. There was something that was going to come out of that was life. And it's different than just other stuff. Listen, I heard someone compare one time the pain of childbirth to a pain of a kidney stone. I've never had a baby or a kidney stone, so I don't even know. But I can tell you one, I've never heard anyone pass a kidney stone and said, man, I'm going to do that again. But it's extremely painful. People that have had a baby, painful. But they say, I want to know. Why? Because there was purpose in it. There was something that came out of it that was life. And that's the kind of stuff I think sometimes when we go through something, we're like, Lord, even in this, teach me, grow me, help me. Help me to walk in this hope that you have for me. So not only do you help others, you help yourself, but you also help others. Martin Luther King Jr. made this statement. He said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. And that's where when we're helping other people who are struggling with darkness, I'm telling you, please allow the Lord to help you. To not look on an outward appearance or an outward manifestation of something. People in this world are hurting. And we don't know their stories. And we need to be loving and kind and accepting to people that are struggling and hurting. Because love is what helps. Light is what helps. We have to let the Lord help us to be better at helping others walk through their dark. Because, when people are going through darkness, especially if it's a sin or if it's a real bad struggle they're having, sometimes a natural thing is to be a little more judgmental. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be loving. These are the words God gave us. Well, they're not there. I just realized we painted that wall. Embrace, encourage, equip, and empower. That's our vision. You can't encourage anyone unless you embrace them. Allow the Lord to help you to love. 3 things real quick as we close that hope will not disappoint. The first one is this. Realize your hope comes from the light. John 8:12, Jesus says this. He goes, I'm the light of the world. If you follow me, you don't have to walk in darkness. Those places where you don't know what to do and you don't know how to do it, you don't know when to do it, you don't know how it's going to work, you don't know if you're going to make it, you don't know if you're not, you don't know anything. Here's the promise. Remember and realize that your hope comes from the light. The second thing, remind yourself of hope when you're facing difficult days. Lamentations chapter 3. Look at these verses. I will never forget. This is, I mean, he's lamenting here, right? This is a lament. This is a difficult time. Jerusalem had just been wiped out. There's all kinds of stuff that has happened. He says, I'll never forget this awful time. And as I grieve over my loss. Then he says this, yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh every morning. And I say to myself, this is proof that you're allowed to talk to yourself. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. You got to remind yourself. Because there's days you're going to feel that loss, and you're going to feel that hurt, and you're going to feel that pain, and you're going to feel that dark spot. And you need to remind yourself, and you need to say to yourself, the Lord is my inheritance. And I'll put my hope in him. Because his mercies are new every morning. And his faithful love endures to the end. And great is his faithfulness. So realize where your hope is. Remind yourself of that hope. And then the last one is regrip onto that hope. Listen, I'm not a good golfer, but I like to play when I can. But I remember playing one time and it was raining. And if you play golf, it's a little expensive sometimes, depending on where you play. So if it rains, you're like, man, I paid $50. I'm not quitting. Because I paid money to play. And I remember one time being out there, and I got up, and it was raining, and I was wet, my shirt was wet. It was just soaking wet. I reared back to hit, make sure I don't hit you. I reared back, and then I follow through and I swing, and the club just flies way out. Just like that. Went right out of my hand. So the next time I got up there to hit again, I took a rag and I dried it off. I dried my hands off, and I got a fresh grip. And every time I put this in my hand, I thought I got to keep hold of it. I need to make sure I re-grip this and I grip it right, and that my hands are dry, because I don't want to lose grip of this club. One, because it could hurt others. And I just got thinking this week about using the phrase of regripping. And when you go through storms and you go through difficulties, sometimes it slips. Sometimes you find yourself at a place where you don't have hope. You lost the grip. And it just went away, and you have that moment where you're standing there, or you're living with this place where you don't have any hope. And today I want to remind you that, listen, your hope is in Jesus, who's the light of the world. And you're going to have to remind yourself by saying to yourself, I'm giving you permission to speak to yourself out loud every day, to say, God, I need to remember that with what I'm feeling in this loss, in this hurt, in this question, in this lack of understanding, in this lack of answers or manifestations, that I know that your faithful love is good. And I know every time I question you, your mercy's new for me. You give me another chance every time. But I know this, I don't understand. But I know you're faithful. So I'm going to grab hold again. And this time, I'm not letting go. Hebrews 10:23, we close with this. Let us hold tightly, without wavering, to the hope we affirm. Because God can be trusted to keep his promise. Hold tight. Listen, if it slipped, wipe your hands off and grab it again and hold tight. Because the temptation is going to be to quit. The temptation is going to be to just give up. But I'm telling you to regrip. I'm telling you to grab it again. You grab that hope again. Because it's there for you. And it's come from Jesus. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads.